And I spent a big portion of my life in the foster care system. I came home one day and, all of my things were packed. And I went to a group home on the north side of Edmonton.
It's terrible that is the reality for human beings out there.
Are told that you're a bad kid and you're set up for failure your whole life, and you don't have a supportive adult or family or people that care about you, encouraging you and supporting you. They don't feel the need to, be ashamed that.
Hello, you beautiful people. Welcome back to the Long-Term Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Villa. Today, we have child and youth worker, and she has had a rough start at life, but she has gone on to achieve phenomenal things, Liz York-Joly. We will discuss living in a foster home, and we talk about her story of rejection and problems in the system. We will also discuss positives like guardians in the system that can help children really integrate into what it means to be a successful person that can regulate their emotions and that can live a life full of hope and love and compassion, and becoming a child youth worker and the impacts of the past. Everyone, welcome. All right, welcome to the Long-Term Podcast. Liz Joly, everyone.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so can you tell me a little bit about yourself?
My name is Liz York-Joly. I'm currently going to school to be a child and youth worker. I work at a nonprofit organization called the Boys and Girls Club in the city of Fort Saskatchewan. And I spent a big portion of my life in the foster care system. So we're here to talk a little bit about that and how that's kind of shaped who I am as a person. So yeah, I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's your story is incredible. I mean, I've been really curious onto how the mind develops through with like the different parents styles and just the upbringing of certain households. But then what about if you don't have parents, right? Then it's that's a whole nother ball game that people have no idea. No idea. So like growing up, how did you like rationalize all of this? I'm sure like did you just think it was normal?
My story's kind of complicated in a sense that I did grow up with my biological mom until I was about 9. So I did grow up in a family atmosphere. It wasn't a healthy atmosphere. I endured a lot of emotional neglect in that household. So I kind of had a skewed version of what a family environment was supposed to be, especially when I came home one day and, all of my things were packed and my bio mom was like, "You're actually going to Edmonton." I was living at Hinton at that time. And she said, "You're going to Edmonton and you're gonna go live there." And I was shocked to say the least, because my world kind of did a whole 360. And
How old were you?
I was 9 at that time.
So your mom just decided one day that, hey, I don't want to be a mom anymore. This is too much for me. And then just packed your stuff and told you, hey, like, let's separate ways.
I never knew my biological father. According to the information that I was told by her, he was really abusive and was in active addiction and used to be violent towards her. So she ran away when I was still a baby, and then we ended up going to Grand Prairie, living there for a bit. And then she met my stepdad at the time, and he moved us. We lived in Grand Prairie for a bit with him, and then we ended up moving to Hinton. And then it was just the 3 of us for a while. And then she ended up having 2 more children with him. So I have 2 half-sisters. So it was us for a little bit. And then that's kind of when the emotional neglect kind of started to happen. I was segregated to the basement a lot of the time. I remember not spending a lot of time with them and spending a lot of time alone, entertaining myself. And when you're so young and you don't really know what's happening as a young child, you start to misbehave, right? You can't really speak about what's going out, so you start to act out. So that's sort of what happened with me, I guess, is I started to misbehave and I was getting in trouble in school. And I guess she didn't really know how to manage that. And it got to a point where I guess she felt that she wasn't doing her job um, in the home with me. So that's when she needed to seek out help and decided that that help would be in Edmonton away from them.
Like when you're a kid and you go
Mm-hmm.
through all these tantrums
Mm-hmm.
and you're lashing out and
Mm-hmm.
you're misbehaving in school, a lot of other kids just think, oh, this is another kid. And they kind of, they just view you as this just bad kid and you're
Mm-hmm.
labeled as that. And then the teachers kind of do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what they don't understand is, hey, maybe there's it's something much deeper. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe some teachers do know, or but they have so many things on their hands already. Now, like you had mentioned that when you were a kid
Mm-hmm.
too, you were being emotionally neglected. And yeah, I mean, which kid wouldn't? I mean, a normal healthy kid would only act like that if they're being treated that way.
Mm-hmm.
So they your mom put you in the basement just
Mm-hmm.
because wasn't enough room upstairs.
There were only 3 bedrooms upstairs. So my 2 younger sisters were upstairs. And then yeah, I was put in the basement.
Sorry to
And
hear. Man, that's tough. But
it was,
you
yeah,
did, yeah,
it
you
was
definitely
hard.
didn't let that hold you back, hey? And
I It's interesting because not too long ago, I was given my file from my whole life being in the system from day one, because the government keeps files and documentations of everything, right? Especially if you ever need to go to court
yeah, yeah.
and things like that. And there was an EA actually who was the first one to contact Child Services who noticed that my behavior at school was quite different um, versus when my biological mom would come and pick me up. She noticed that there was a significant behavior change. Um, I was, a sweet kid, I'd like to say, goofy, fun. And then when she would come to pick me up from school, that's when, it was like a switch flipped and my behavior changed and I would, act out. I guess I was sassy, I would talk back, that's when that behavioral change kind of switched. And to her, that was odd, right? Especially when you think a kid being at school, that's when they're more misbehaved. And when their parents come to pick them up, that's when, you see their softer side. But it was the opposite. And she thought that was weird. And that's kind of what started the ball rolling, I think, for social services to get involved, which was interesting because I never realized that. But it makes sense now that I think back to it.
And at the time, do you remember being 9 or 10 and
I
just
do. Yeah.
how did it feel?
I felt small. I felt alone. I felt really misunderstood and kind of like a freak. I did make friends in school and I remember in Hinton, my neighbor who just lived right around the corner from us, she was one of my best friends. And I remember being so envious of her family lifestyle. She had a brother, her parents, and them were really close. They would go camping, they would go, to the lake, they would do a lot of fun things as family together. And I just remember, going to her house and being like, why don't I have this? Because this is not what I experience in my home life. Um, I don't really remember ever doing, fun family activities like that when I was that age. I remember playing in the basement with, my Polly Pockets and my dolls. And I grew up on Disney movies. That's how I kind of entertained myself and spent a lot of my childhood. So it was, and I didn't understand, obviously being that young. So it was definitely hard for me to, have those deep emotions and not really know what to make of them.
Yeah. I think it's not quite the same story, but when I was 9, I had migrated all the way from the Philippines to Canada.
Wow.
And yeah, I was separated from my biological mom here to live with my biological dad. And just, I was a mama's boy. Like, I didn't really,
Mm.
like, sure, I looked up to my dad, but my heart lied with my mother. I
Mm-hmm.
went to mother, sought her out for everything, just emotional support.
Mm.
And yeah, she had thought that it was best for me to go to Canada for a better future, because what was she going to do? She was just going to stay in the Philippines. And had she carried that resentment by limiting my future, by ensuring that, oh, her kid is with her instead of the father who mistreated her, then it's just, yeah. And then when you're a kid and that's done to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of the emotional needs aren't met and you feel neglected, and you,
Mm-hmm.
like, I remember just like sitting down, like playing with my cars one day when I just like arrived in Canada, and just like looking at the wall and going, what is this feeling? Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like emptiness, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like a void, and it's just like I'm not wanted. But
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't go up to my dad and be like, hey, like, what happened between you and mom, right? That wasn't cool. Like, well, why don't we make
Mm-hmm.
like why don't we talk it out?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you're that age, like, you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what's going
You
on.
don't even know
And
what
of
to
course,
say.
I love both my parents very much, and they mean a lot to me, and they've done a lot of good, and it's not all linear, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, yeah, that's terrible. So, and you had brought up the fact that you had your neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
and you looked at their family, and like, oh, why does she get to
Mm-hmm.
have a brother and a solid family like that? When I go home, it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I was thinking the same way with bikes when I was that age, with all this stuff. And it definitely, we take so many things for granted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And yeah, you don't talk to your mom anymore?
No, I maintained a relationship with her and my half siblings until I was about 13 years old, right before my 13th birthday. Um and then yeah, I would go and like visit with my siblings and stuff, and then I would go back to whatever foster home I was at the time. But I think I
When you say
remember
maintain, like, you text them, or did they text back, or did they reach out
it
first,
was
or?
through my social worker at the time. So yeah, I wasn't like texting her and stuff like that. It was, oh, this weekend they had free, I was free. Can we set up a visit? So the government was always a third party for that relationship to
Like,
maintain.
how do you even rationalize that though? Because you got your siblings, they're
Mm-hmm.
living with your mother, and then
Mm-hmm.
how come you're not living with them? Like,
That was
how did you even process that? And how old were you around this time? Like,
I I was about I stopped living with them full time when I was 9. So from 9 to 13. And my sisters were quite young. My youngest sister, I remember she wouldn't know who I was. The eldest did. And it was always so heartbreaking because she couldn't say Elizabeth. So she would always be like, Bebes, where are you going? Why is Bebes leaving? And it was really heartbreaking because when I was younger and I was, living in that basement, I really wanted siblings. I didn't want to be an only child. I wanted to play hide and seek and, do all those fun family activities. And part of my story actually involves my siblings because my bio mom um, told people that I was a danger to my siblings and that I was harmful to them. And that was another reason why she couldn't have me in the home, which was really heartbreaking. And a big reason why I struggle with people making accusations towards me that aren't true because,
You think she actually believed that?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
did
do.
she really do anything to prevent that though? Did she just blame it on you?
I think she used it as a scapegoat for sure. I was never harmful to my sisters ever. I adored them, and I think that was part of the hardest part of not maintaining that relationship is that I have two half sisters in this life that I have no idea about. Um, and I know they know I exist, but the narrative that my bio mom has created, I have no idea what that is. But I'm sure it's not entirely positive. But there's nothing I can do about that.
That's tough, but
One of them actually followed me on Instagram.
oh, nice.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was a year ago, just before my 21st birthday, and I always knew she was gonna find me on social media.
How'd that
She
feel?
was. I cried. I
Yeah.
cried.
Mhm.
It was quite emotional because she actually ended up messaging me a happy birthday.
Wow.
And I was like, how do you even remember when my birthday was? But I said thank you. I was like, yeah, big 21 today, and that's kind of it. I follow her on social media, so obviously I keep up with her life. She's seems to be the quite successful young preteen that she is. But yeah, it was really surreal.
That's awesome. I think sooner or later the truth always comes out. Like you
Yeah.
can always like sure you can castigate this person
Mhm.
from your family and
Mhm.
you tell your family that hey this happened, that happened, and maybe they'll believe it initially, but over time they remember the kind of the fragments of
Mhm.
the past and they go, no, Liz never treated me that way. Liz never. No,
Mhm.
I need to make an effort, and it's testament to your character because
Mhm.
why would she feel the need to reach out to you if you had treated her wrong? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like
Mhm.
she treated you with uh, like reaching out, and that just she took initiative to actually find you.
Mhm.
You did something right,
I
you
hope
know?
so.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
think the narrative that my bio mom, and I don't know 100%, but I think the narrative for her is that she helped save me and that, oh, we helped Liz, save her and she's living a great life now and she has a family. But to me, that still doesn't make sense as to why you would want your biological child with another family
yeah,
and not with your own.
yeah. I'm sure there's a million reasons that pop up into
Hmm.
your head, hey, and you could
Yeah.
choose that one, that one. It could be this. It could
Hmm.
be like it could be because she had a lot on her plate and she needed to make
Hmm.
sacrifices. But even then,
Hmm.
right, that's your kid, and that's your kid. And I think that if you were to bring life to this world, you can't just be thinking of yourself anymore. Like you
I
have to
agree.
do what it takes to care for that defenseless child.
Hmm.
And if you put them into a system of just the foster care with no love and compassion, more than likely they'll turn into a werewolf. But luckily that's why I said you inspire me because you didn't.
Thank
Right.
you.
And I'm sure you've probably
Means a lot.
witnessed so many of your like peers in that the foster care system turn rogue.
Hmm.
Okay.
It could have
And
easily happened to me.
so what separated like your mindset from the kids that turned into a life of crime or just cynicism and
Mm,
nihilism?
fear.
Yeah.
Honestly, fear. I was surrounded by that all the time. Especially when I was living in the group home at the time. There were girls younger than me that were, associated with gangs and, criminal activity and, doing all sorts of things like that. And it terrified me. It really did. And I'm thankful that that fear, withheld me. Um, Unfortunately, it sort of crippled me in my future with other things in my life. But at the same time, I also really didn't want to be a statistic. I really didn't want to, have my biological mom say, yeah, I was right. She's a bad kid. Because all my life, that's what I was known as, is you're a bad kid, you're not going anywhere, you're gonna end up a statistic, you're just gonna, be a criminal, end up on the streets, and in most cases, unfortunately, a lot of kids do, because when you are told that you're a bad kid and you're set up for failure your whole life, and you don't have, a supportive adult or family or people that care about you, encouraging you and supporting you, what else are you going to do? Right?
You see that these kids are turning into a life of crime, a life of kind of destitute, and they've been told all their lives, all you guys have been told, oh, that you'll never amount to anything, that
Mm-hmm.
you're this person, and you just keep following it, and the prophecy becomes real.
Mm-hmm.
And like it's terrible that that is the reality for human beings out there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like continuous cycle, because then when they grow up, they're going to do the same thing. Now, what was the most challenging part of living in a foster home, especially when dealing with rejection from families?
I think for me, the instability of growing up in different foster homes, and not really having that family connection. I lived in 7 different foster homes before I ended up living in a group home. And during that time, I was, you know, part of 3 different families that were trying to adopt me. Um, and they're not 100% to blame. When I was that age, I had a sense of entitlement, which is weird for, how I was growing up. Um, but um, the first family that wanted to adopt me were strange individuals. I don't really remember them too much because I was still quite young at that time, but I do remember my social worker, Brandi, being like, okay, I don't think this is a good match. So then I went to another foster home. And then the second family, um, I think they were trying to fill a void, you know? So that just wasn't a healthy setup. And then the last family that I was a part of, I was 14 at the time, and I think they were trying to mold me, but I wasn't a child. I was already, a preteen, trying to figure out my own identity, and it just didn't end up working out. But at that time, I was in Sherwood Park. So that's how I ended up here during my grade 9th year. And then, yeah, I went into a group home and dealt with a lot of um, strenuous things in that home before my parents adopted me. But I don't know. I think feeling misunderstood and feeling lost, feeling unwanted, not really knowing where you belong in the world, and not really having a place in a family to kind of call your own was really hard. It was really hard, especially when I would, do sports and, extracurricular activities, and people would be like, "Oh, like is your family coming to see you?" And it was just I kind of avoided the question because, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed. I didn't want anyone to know that, I was just a foster kid. But
So the first family, just bunch of yahoos, like they're no good.
yeah.
Second family, you had mentioned they're trying to fill a void, and that brings a quote in mind by Matthew Hussey, and it's, to have an exceptional love life, you need to have a love for life. And when you're trying to fill a void for someone to fulfill, right, you're unhappy with your life, and by adopting a child, you're trying to make yourself happy that way. And if you're not even happy yourself, how are you
Mhm.
going to make this child happy? And it's just a
Exactly.
recipe for disaster. And the third one, they were trying to mold you into a person that who you weren't. It went against
Mhm.
your character, and it's kind of that lack of acceptance. And then and then so on.
Yeah,
It,
and then at that point,
yeah.
I went to a group home on the north side of Edmonton.
And then after that, that's when you're with your current family now,
Yeah.
who accepts you for who you
Oh,
are and
100%.
yeah, cultivates a environment of love, compassion, and understanding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They saved my life.
Yeah.
So,
Like spectacular.
yeah.
Uh, can you share some of the systematic issues you've encountered within group homes that you believe need urgent reform?
I think group homes specifically um have a revolving door when it comes to staff. Um Group homes and group care have a lot of kids that are really high risk youth and high risk kids. Um, and when you have staff that don't really have a lot of resources at hand and they deal with a lot of burnout, that's going to trickle onto the treatment of the kids, right? And the government does not give enough money or resources to the homes in general, right? Like it's a very broken system. And I think it's something that needs to be considered, especially when dealing with kids who are, trying to build successful lives and futures for themselves when, it's group homes or the streets, right? You have foster homes and then group care. And then after that, you're kind of on your own. But I
Yeah.
think I think that's a big thing. I remember not eating very well, not sleeping very well. I remember the first time my parents came to pick me up for dinner. My mom cried because she's like, "We can't leave Liz here." It was not the best situation that I was living in at that time.
Yeah. Definitely as a kid, I remember complaining about kind of my family and comparing myself to the rich kid, and
Hmm.
then I hear stories like these, and it's just really sobering to know that a lot of kids in Short Park are very fortunate.
Very.
And yeah, well, like, were they not enough, or were they just not as balanced when
It
it comes to
was
nutrition?
it was a lot of frozen food.
Yeah,
There wasn't a lot of budget when it came to money, especially for groceries. So I don't remember eating a lot. And if I did, it was a lot of like Mr. Noodles and peanut butter sandwiches.
that's terrible. And yeah, you had mentioned that there's not enough funding, and then you got these people that are wanting to make a change.
Oh,
And
100%. Yeah.
yeah, they have
And
good
most of them
hearts.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when you don't have enough manpower, and just there's not enough, like there's only so much you can do with good intentions. If you don't have any funds to back it all up,
Hmm.
then it's gonna be a wild ride. It's gonna be very, very difficult to
Hmm.
be able to adapt in that situation. Hey, and yeah, what was the kind of the most common issue that you saw amongst the kids in the group homes?
I think for me, it was seeing a lot of the kids get into drugs and turn into gangs.
Were there like dealers inside, or how did that
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
funneled in?
Um, I actually lived in the group home that I was at. I lived a couple houses down from, we call them trap houses. Um, and one of the girls got affiliated with them, and he was a dealer, and asked one of the girls to start also dealing for him. She was 12. I was 14 at the time, and I thought that was really
Jeez,
scary.
that's so
Yeah,
young, hey?
so
Like
young.
how?
And they're so easily misled, right? A lot of people don't understand that, being a part of a gang is a community, it's a family, right? It's where you can build a sort of identity. It's not the right one or a healthy one by any means, but when you don't have family and you know, are surrounded with people who say, no, like you're a part of this family, we got you, you know, are supplying them with money so they can buy things that they don't have at the group home that they're living in, it's very easy for them to become a part of that.
Yeah. When you aren't grounded, when you lack that connection within,
Mm-hmm.
then there's this person that approaches you to deal their drugs for them. And it gives you a role to fill.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then maybe a smile here and there. And sure, they may be a little bit aggressive, but you're part of something greater than yourself. You're,
Exactly.
and you, when you're 12, when you're 14, 15,
Mm-hmm.
like you don't really know kind of the evils to the fullest extent. So sure, you
Mm-hmm.
have an idea that, oh, you're not supposed to do this. This is
Mm-hmm.
wrong. But then the feeling of connection, the feeling of love that you've never felt for lots of the kids all their lives,
Mm-hmm.
when you feel that, oh, like the gang initiation will do this crime and we'll slash these tires and it's all
Mm-hmm.
fun and games and
Mm-hmm.
you're running away with your boys or
Mm-hmm.
your girls and
Mm-hmm.
you're finally with a group of people from being rejected home after home, family
Mm-hmm.
after family, from people telling you that you're not going to amount to anything, that you're going to be this person that is going to be a failure. I'm not a failure. Like I'm successful in this business,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's drugs. And there's the narrative of, yeah, like I feel I'm good at this. I'm good at what I do. And it's just,
Exactly.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
terrible.
it was really hard to see.
How did these early experiences shape your sense of identity and belonging as a young person?
I had and still have a lot of holes in my identity and in my development growing up. Um, so a lot of, you know, basic things that, you know, your family would teach you, like building a resume or, you know, going to your own doctor's appointments or, you know, how to make friends, how to build healthy relationships, you know, even, you know, emotional regulation when you have a hard day or your boss, you know, pissed you off. Like, how do you handle that? I didn't have that. I had a lot of holes in that sense and in that regard. So my parents both have really helped fill those holes and really helped shape that identity for me. Um, but I've always felt that I was 3 steps behind, you know, my peers because of that. I'm slowly catching up, but there was a good point in my teenage years where I was always, you know, a couple steps behind everyone else and I was catching up and I was learning how to do all of those basic things that you wouldn't really think, you know, are important, but they were. So, yeah, that was probably the biggest change for me.
I think you're actually really ahead of people maturity wise. I mean, I know I talk to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to be, like cocky, but
Yeah.
like I'll just strike up conversation with
Mm-hmm.
especially people that we went to high school with. And I
Yeah.
think your growth, kind of where you are at such a young age, and you being able to tackle all these dilemmas and being able to be resilient and just authentic and still having a sense of purpose, even though going through all these things that wasn't necessarily your like a healthy childhood.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that victim mentality, it seems.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate that.
why is that? Like for
My
me, I still
parents.
kind of flip flop. Like I still kind of, it's like a Monday morning.
Yeah.
I gotta go to work. Oh, I gotta go to
Yeah.
do the podcast. I gotta go run. Like why do I do these things? I just want to lay down.
Mm-hmm.
How come you didn't develop that victim's mentality despite going through so much?
I won't lie. There were times where I did play the victim. I do have to be honest about that. It's hard not to when, you know, you've grown up the way that I did.
I mean, it's not
Um,
like you're not the victim either. Like clearly.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
kind of a double-edged sword, but
Hmm.
I have my parents to thank for that a lot. They never wanted me to develop that victim mentality, and taught me that, it's important to struggle. It's important to go through those hardships because that is how you build character. That is how you grow as a person. That is how you build resiliency. And, every time you get through those hardships, it becomes easier and you handle it more with grace. And I think that's been, you know, really life changing for me. Especially, for example, I was, struggling with work a couple weeks ago. And, me a couple years ago, I would have lashed out. I would have been freaking out. I would not have handled, that situation well at all. But because of how my parents have raised me and instilled that, you don't want to be a victim in those situations, I just handled it with grace. And I was just, accepting of the situation and did what I could do to make the situation better for myself instead of, complaining and, yeah,
Complaining is not going to get you anywhere.
exactly.
And there's this quote by J. Cole. It's beauty in the struggle, ugliness in the success.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of, actually, I kind of feel bad for the people that never went through the pain and suffering.
I agree.
Because then I see it and kind of the people that we went to high school with, the people on campus, like it's a lot of complaining. It's a lot of bitching, like
Yeah.
and these are the same people that have two parent households. The mom's a lawyer, the dad or they're in prestigious jobs. And then they break a nail. Maybe that's like a hyperbole, but that's like an over exaggeration. It's like the end of the world. But then
Yeah.
here you are, like when something catastrophic happens, I've been through worse. Like I feel that where it's just you welcome it and then you kind of process it. And sure, you may be discombobulated for a way in a way, but you were taught that the struggle made you who you are. Yeah.
And it's not despite of either. I like to think that what I went through, you know, it didn't make me a stronger person. I made me a stronger person, right? Like I chose to take that situation and better myself from it, you know? And yeah, it's interesting to see, people like you said from Sherwood Park, from high school, even going to my college. It's people don't understand real struggle, and it's scary because they should, right? It really humbles you and it really opens your eye to what life is like and what hardship is, because then you truly appreciate and your gratitude grows even for the simple things, right? So,
Kind of that chaos really instills that gratitude because after you've been through it, you go, whoa, my life is actually so much better now that I've overcome that. And it's kind of that perspective shift of okay, like I can either let those memories of being abandoned, of feeling isolated, of feeling like I'm not good enough define my future and define my future decisions, or I could view it that way and I could be I could integrate myself into the system in youth care, and that's what you've done.
Yeah, and
right?
make that change.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So positives in your life, such as Brandi, the social worker, hey, and adoption and life transformation. So how did the consistent support from Brandi over 14 years impact your journey, and what role did she play in your healing process?
She never gave up on me. She saw the good in me, but she also saw my flaws. She, saw my brokenness, and yet she still loved me, cared for me. She never gave up on me. She was very adamant in finding, the the family for me, right? And she did. She sought it out to the end. But she was the one constant adult in my life that I knew would have my back. And, you know, being in child and youth care right now in school, we learn about that it takes one adult in a child's life that will instill that confidence and that resilience in them. And that's definitely what she did for me. You know, she's seen it all. She's seen me through all the stages of my life. You know, I definitely was a bit of a troublemaker back then, but she never gave up on me. She was always there for me. And I knew that she had my best interests at heart and that she would always have my back.
You just went to her for everything?
Yeah, and you're not really supposed to. You know, being in the role that I'm taking and the social worker role, she was technically my legal guardian. So, and she had she had a lot of kids on her caseload, right? Like I wasn't her only kid on her caseload, and it's supposed to be more governmental and less relational. But she definitely went beyond that for me, which I'll always be grateful for. I remember calling her in the group home, you know, crying and being like, "Can you come take me out for supper? Like, I haven't eaten in like a couple days. Like, I'm just, you know, I was really struggling." And she would, you know, even if she was just talking on the phone with me for 20 minutes, you know, every day here and there, like it was just the small things, you know, that she would do. I remember when she also dropped me off at the group home for the first time, she saw the state of my bedroom and took me to Bed Bath and Beyond and like bought bedding, got like a mirror for me, like toiletries, like out of her own pocket, just so I could live a bit comfortably than what I was going to be living in. And she didn't have to do that. Social workers that's not in their job description, right? So I knew she truly did care for me when she did things like that.
That's amazing. I mean,
Yeah. She's
these
an
are the
amazing woman.
yeah, these are the types of people that we should look up to.
Oh, 100%.
These like, because I see that, you know, I scroll through my Snap and I just like the suggestions, like, and there's like the Hawk Tua girl. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like then you hear stories like that, and it's
Mhm.
just like it's amazing. Just like this is what people should strive to be.
Mhm.
That this is a great example of just altruism and kind of the
Mhm.
good qualities of what it means to foster care, love,
Mhm.
and connection, and to
Mhm.
she never gave up on you. Right?
Never.
14 years, and
Yep.
I think that's what we need to do when we are creating a positive life.
Mhm.
Is people are going to make mistakes, and
Mhm.
you had mentioned that you weren't the best, you weren't kind of the easiest to deal with, but she
No.
didn't give up on you. And I think it's just, you remember all those times you just lashed out and you maybe said something
Mhm.
hurtful, and kind of, yeah, I'm thankful for the people in my life that never went, yeah, this is a lost cause, goodbye,
Yeah.
cut ties.
Mhm.
And a lot of people do that, and it's like
Mhm.
maybe they're just not in a phase in their lives
Mhm.
that they can accept another person's problems, but to truly accept another human being into your life,
Mhm.
you sure maybe initially, like as a friend, there may be a romantic partner or like a
Mhm.
child,
Mhm.
you think of all the good things.
Mhm.
You think of, oh, it's gonna be so awesome, like raising this kid, because we're gonna look like a family, and then we're gonna play ball together, and we're gonna do each other's makeup, watch movies. But then the kid calls, and like my brother, for instance, he's 6. I hate you. Like out of nowhere, I'm like, what the? Throws a tantrum, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, shit hits the fan, and the relationship has some strain.
Mhm.
And you can either look at that as, okay, I'm going to try to find a solution, or I'm going to try to get rid of this person.
Yeah.
In 14 years, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Brandi, no, shout out to Brandi. She's the goat,
The
the goat.
goat.
Can you describe the moments when you realized that being adopted by your parents would be a life-changing event for you?
I think one of the most important moments for me, when I say they saved my life, I don't take that lightly. I was going through a really dark time. Um, living in the group home. And I did try to take my own life. Quite open about that. Um, and it was not too long before actually, the whole story happened where I was actually skipping class that day. And, he came to talk with us and I made a joke and, God's great big plan.
Yeah.
So that was a big moment for me. Like my parents literally did save my life. Um, and then, after I became, their daughter and a part of their family, it's not just, one moment after that. It's multiple of moments. My parents were very patient with me. They were very accepting. They never gave up on me, and I I was difficult. I will admit that, I really made them work for it. But, they really got to know me and all of my different layers, like it would just be small things like if my parents went out and they would, oh, I think Liz would like this. And, they would get it for me. And I would come home and my mom would be like, oh, I thought of you today. And, I knew you'd like this. Or, all the times that I would really fight with my parents. And yet, even after, I said some pretty cruel things, they still never turned away. They still never said, oh, I'm going to throw in the towel, you know? So I kind of owe everything to them for that.
The Jollies they are such amazing, just loving, compassionate people. And when you hear that last name, and I think Mr. Jolly did talk about, carries a lot of weight
It
because
does.
they are very, like, when you hear the narrative, the people that have come in contact with the
Mhm.
Jollies, it's life changing. It seems it's all very, like, it's purposeful, and it's just it's there's no superficial talk. It seems it's just like it all transcends the physical,
Mhm.
and it all makes sense to kind of the growing minds, and
Mhm.
just even me hearing about kind of my friends and their stories and the experiences that, yeah, even with you as well. And now you're a Jolly, so you're probably gonna have that same mindset going in the future, and you are doing it by being a
Mhm.
youth worker.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, it's you guys is very blessed, and I,
I'm very thankful
yeah,
and I'm very grateful to them.
yeah,
I don't think I'll ever be able to repay them by any means, but I try to by making them proud,
yeah.
by yeah.
And you had mentioned that you had said some hurtful stuff, hey, and I was the same way with my parents or
Mhm.
my here, and yeah, I think when we do that, hey, did you ever get the like, I didn't, in retrospect it makes sense now, but at the time I didn't really know, but I was trying to get them to kick me out, or I was trying to get them to not like me. But then, like, my dad, they just, mom here,
Mhm.
like, she's still very close to my heart too. I call her
Mhm.
mom, even though she's my stepmom. Like,
Mhm.
she's a wonderful person.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'd say all these things, and I just wanted them to. I would just wanted to tarnish the relationship, and I know that kind of that self destruction. It didn't make sense, but I just didn't want, because I had this feeling of, oh, like, what's the point? It's gonna end anyway, sooner or
Mhm.
later. Why don't I just end it now and make them find out who I truly am? I'm
Mhm.
the person that tells you, yeah, I don't like you. Like, I'm not there to listen. I'm just an
Mhm.
asshole. But then when they actually go, yeah, I forgive you, or and then you talk about it, and then they, no matter how much you hurt them, they still
Mhm.
come back at you with love. It's like, wait, what? You still want to put up with me? Like, you don't want
Mhm.
to kick me out? And
Mhm.
it almost got
That's
to it. I mean, wrong, but like, still,
There were a
like,
few times for me as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
like you can still put up with me, and then
Mhm.
I think of those moments where I hurt those that I love the most, and I go, there's so much regrets. That's probably like one of the biggest regrets, that the feelings that I have, and how can I hurt those that only want the best for me?
Mhm.
But then I go, okay, we're not perfect, and kind of forgiving
Mhm.
yourself too for feeling that
Mhm.
way. And that's we're all flawed and we do go through these things. And there's this one quote too where it goes, I asked God for to forgive my worst enemy, and so I forgave myself.
Yeah,
You
that's
know, because like
powerful.
your mind,
Yeah.
it does that, right? Like a lot of kind of in this day and age too, it's
Hmm.
like we hurt ourselves more than others hurt us. You
I
know?
agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird because like a lot of the suffering, a lot of the kind of the inadequacy, the shame that I feel, it's like self-inflicted.
100%. I
Yeah,
think
like
that's that
yeah,
self-sabotaging.
yeah. Like I didn't have to
Yeah.
feel that way.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't have to. Like
Yep.
looking back and like some of the problems that I had even 3 months ago,
Hmm.
I didn't have to feel that way. Sure, maybe I could have just slapped. I could have just given myself that
Hmm.
grace of,
Hmm.
yeah, we make mistakes. It's okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We also choose, our own happiness. I do believe that that's a choice that you make. So the same kind of goes with, that self-sabotaging behavior. And, like you said, we are our own worst enemies when it comes to things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. It's how did this transformation influence your character and ability to build relationships, especially after experiencing so much instability?
I Like I said before, my parents definitely have helped, fill those holes in my identity. And I think when you become more comfortable, with yourself and who you're growing to be, and you're more accepting of yourself, then you can accept others into your life, and you can be vulnerable with others and you can let people in. And, I struggled, you know, making true authentic relationships with people, especially when I was, a bit younger. But as I've grown up and I've, worked on myself and I've worked on, my flaws, I've, built some really good, relationships with the people that I have in my life now. And I think it has a lot to do with acceptance as well. My mom has taught me that if you want others to accept you, then you have to accept others, and that includes their flaws as well, right? You can't expect everyone to kind of be where you're at, and then get upset when they're not, right? Because the same vice versa. If you do something that somebody else, doesn't like or doesn't agree with, if you love the person, you kind of have to, accept that for what it is.
A quote that comes to mind by Marcus Aurelius is, be strict with yourself and tolerant with others. And while
Mm-hmm.
you're a person that is resilient,
Mm-hmm.
you have gone through a lot of life's atrocities and you
Mm-hmm.
didn't let it get to you. And sure, you did lash a little bit, but ultimately at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the day, you were successful.
Mm-hmm.
And now kind of I'm the same way where, it wasn't that easy to, and kind of you have this hardened system. And then when
Mm-hmm.
you talk to someone and they don't recognize that, oh, like this is my mindset, you have to think the way I think,
Mm-hmm.
and you're strict with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
You understand yourself fully.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of the miscommunication that comes up is when you think that they just fully understand what you're thinking, and it's
Mm-hmm.
no, like you guys are different people.
People,
To truly
exactly.
empathize and to
Mm-hmm.
truly just go take a step back and
Mm-hmm.
go, this is another human being with all
Mm-hmm.
their sets of values, experiences, even identical twins. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm friends with a couple identical twins, and they're different. Like
Mm-hmm.
genetically they're the same, but they're completely different.
Mm-hmm. I think being open-minded and having an open heart too, like you said, right? Like we are all so different. And I think once you're able to open yourself up to other people, it's easier to build those connections and, kind of get to know somebody beyond, that first layer of somebody else. So,
And you had mentioned too that the flaws, that kind of being able to verbalize your emotions to people
mm-hmm.
actually brings you closer together. Hey,
Oh,
yeah,
100%. I used to be, ashamed and scared to, admit, hey, I'm having a bad day, or, I'm kind of going through this, this is why I'm a little, on edge or not myself, but I find that people really appreciate that honesty, and that builds trust with somebody else when you're able to go, hey, like I'm kind of going through this, this is what's going on. And to that other person, it means a lot that you're able to, break down those walls and be vulnerable with somebody else.
Yeah, it's cathartic. And I think,
Exactly.
with me, I love going to the gym, getting after it, just having like a hearted mentality. But at the same time, like I'll cry on a homie's shoulder. Like I'll cry. Like I love Disney movies too. You said that you grew up with that. Like Elemental. Do you see that one? So
yes, with
good.
the fire in the water.
Yeah. I'm like, this is what my love life looks like.
Me too.
I'm like, this has to be, I have to like somehow transform into like a water guy.
Yeah.
But where are we at? Vulnerability. I think that's just, there's so much power onto just telling someone that, oh, I'm not doing well. And there is kind of the distinction that I want to make too, is there's kind of the complaining and the bitching and thinking like, oh, I'm not good enough and I'll never amount to anything. The difference was, sure, you can do that, but the thing with vulnerability is you're willing to do something about it. Like having like the victim's mentality is just having that narrative of, oh, it's the world's fault, there's nothing I can do. But then vulnerability is, oh, this happened to me, and sure, it may be the world's fault, it could be my fault, but I'm willing to do something about it, and I'm going to open it up to others so that they have insight into my life so we can grow together. Versus it's just feel bad for me. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I've sensed that in people where it's like, yeah, my life's terrible. Like I'm fat and ugly, and my parents hate me, and I hate my parents. Feel bad for me.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's tough, and I feel like it is pain and suffering to the fullest extent, I'd say. But at the end of the day, they can't save you. Like no one else is gonna save you.
You gotta save yourself.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I think that's the key difference too when it comes to the victim mentality is, you're your own person. You're in charge of your own life. If you aren't happy with what's going on, then you have to go out and make that change. And it's also the human blindness, right? That people don't understand is they're blind to their flaws, and they're blind to the fact that they do think that it's the world's, that, this is why I'm like this, and this is why my life's so hard. And they truly don't see that it's actually them and their own actions that is preventing them to get where they want to get, right?
All right. So how did your experiences in foster care inspire you to pursue a career in child and youth work?
I definitely wanted to make a change, right? I mean, I experienced firsthand kind of what it's like growing up in foster care and group care. And so being a youth worker, I feel like I could relate with the kids, right? And I could be someone that they could talk to and have, truly understand what it's like. And, I always wanted to help people. I knew that I always wanted to, make a change and help. I thought I was going to be a nurse. Thought that's how I was going to, roll down that path.
And you still could.
Oh, I can't handle blood.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So, I decided, I thought I was going to do social work, but then when I went to the open house at my college, I realized that it's, like I said, it's less relational work, right? And I want to be more hands-on. I want it to be more relational. And you work more closely with the family and more one-on-one with the kids that you work with. But yeah, I just think that, my experience can really make a difference and shed some light into, how things can change and be better.
Sure, Brandi probably inspired you, hey?
Oh, and Brandi for sure. Oh, she knows that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But doesn't it become heavy to keep exposing yourself to all these kids that are in foster care that don't have parents that are stable? Like, does that make you become cynical?
That's a good question. It's interesting that I am going to be, working for a government that, I suffered through, right? But at the end of the day, you know, the system is broken, but it can be mended in some ways depending on the people that work for that system. And I truly believe that, not all my experiences, were negative and bad. Like I had people like Brandi, and I remember, staff in the group home, and I had, a foster home. Her name was Deb, that I, adored. And, there was good people and good experiences. But I think, it takes people like me and others to go out and make that change. Right. But I hope it doesn't make me cynical. I think working with the kids more one-on-one and being reminded of why I do this will keep that from happening for sure.
But I'm sure it becomes heavy at times.
It hasn't yet, just because, I'm just starting out in the field, but I do expect, it will be. Self-care is really important in this line of work that I'm going in, for that reason, because it is heavy, right? We're going to be, working with some really difficult situations and some kids who are going through some really, tough things. But I think, for me, being in therapy is, a huge part of releasing, that
Mhm.
heavy load and maintaining, that self-care. So yeah, I'm hoping that I can manage that.
Yeah, I'm sure you're resilient, you're strong, you could take it on. And I actually wanted to talk about this. I haven't brought this forth with anyone, but I've just been ruminating on it. And
Mm-hmm.
I talk to people about their problems a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I just get a kick out of it. Yeah, I don't know, like that
Mm-hmm.
vulnerability stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But and then I'll talk to people that are in less fortunate
Mm-hmm.
areas, like yeah, the homeless woman from yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel connected. Sure, I do that because
Mm-hmm.
we're connecting, it's human. But I also feel like gratitude, and I feel kind of guilty in this gratitude because it's like I feel better about my life because their life is worse off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that make sense? Like,
That
I
makes
feel like
yep.
it's kind of like a mind fuck for me where it's
Mm-hmm.
like I want this, I want to connect with this person, and I want to feel better about my life. So am I like connecting with them to make
Mm-hmm.
myself feel better? What does that
Mm-hmm.
say about me?
Mm-hmm.
Does that
That
make
makes
sense?
no,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense. I think that's almost God's way of, you know, reminding us and humbling us in a way, right? Obviously, you don't want to make yourself feel better by, connecting with those people, right? That's not who you are. That's not, who most of us are as people. But I think it's just a way for you to reflect on, the things that, that you do have in your life and that you are grateful for. I had moments like that myself when, I was adopted, and, I'm spoiled in with my family, and, with how my life kind of turned out. And especially because a lot of kids, don't have the opportunity to, kind of get saved and, become a part of a family, and they end up trickling, into the statistics. And I did feel guilty, right? I'm definitely a rare success story. And but then I remember that, I did also have, a play in that, right? Like I worked for that, I make sure that I try every day to, better myself and maintain that, right?
Do you know any other of your peers in the foster care that got saved?
No,
No?
no,
What?
no.
So are you in contact with any of them?
I used to be with one of them, but um, I did not maintain that relationship just because, we were going into different directions in life. And I could tell that, she was, turning down the path that I was trying to stray away from, right? Which, I don't blame her for that at all. But no, I rarely, it's very rare to see a kid, especially a teenager, you
Mm,
know, adopted out of the system, right? Especially a lot of people want younger kids, right? They want babies, they want toddlers, because they're, like I said, they're easier to mold and to shape, right? But when you're a teenager, you're already developing that sense of identity. And, teenagers are teenagers for a reason. So, it's hard for people to have the patience to deal with that. So a lot of kids know they just age out of the system.
yeah. And you had mentioned that you didn't want to be closer to this person because
Mm,
they were in this trajectory of a life where you just didn't want to be influenced. Where
mm,
I'm kind of the same way too, with the people that I went to high school with.
mhm,
Like I don't want to go to the bar every weekend. Like I don't
mhm,
want to do drugs like smoke weed all the
mhm,
time. It's like,
mhm,
it's just not for me. I don't want to
mhm,
be talking about all these ideas that are just superficial, that
mhm,
don't connect us. Now, I also kind of developed the mindset too of, oh, like I'm in this like moral high horse when really that's not where I'm trying to get at, but
mhm,
essentially it's another form of guilt where it's like
mhm,
I've had these friends, some of them for decades, and
mhm,
like we've developed so many memories.
mhm,
Like how do you rationalize that where you kind of have to cut off a tie because they're just not serving your purpose? And while you love them and you want them to
mhm,
do well, it's just being around them is a burden. And it's just, yeah, I have trouble rationalizing that. How do
mhm.
you go about that?
I have a quote for you.
Oh, let's hear it.
Um, you want to see them eat, just not at your table, right?
Mm,
I think that's kind of how I rationalize it. You still care for these people and you want to see them succeed and do well, but it's okay for you not to want to continue that relationship, right? Because if you're trying to grow and better yourself as a person and you have people in your life who, are holding you back or are not even wanting to grow with you, you know, you are a maker of your environment and those people are part of your environment. And if they're not, aligning to your morals and your ethics and how you want to succeed in this life, then it's okay to walk away so you can reach that goal, so you can be better and do better. And I don't think there's anything to be, feel guilty about, right? I've had a lot of friends who, have come and gone in my life and who are no longer in my life now, but I wish them all the best. I just, they didn't fit where I want to go in this life and that's okay.
yeah. Like if I saw them at Superstore, at the checkout
I'd say,
counter,
hey,
yeah, but Kay,
yeah.
I don't know. What would you, what if they're like, yeah, Liz, let's hang out. Like, come next week.
um, I honestly, I think I'm,
Maybe you'd be at like different tables. Hey, you can
yeah,
eat them.
yeah.
Like,
You sit
cool.
over there, I'll
You
sit
sit
over
over there,
here.
like sure, like
Yeah,
get up and go on.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Mm.
think, see, and that's tough for me because I do believe people can change. I really do. Um, if they're willing, if they put in the work, I believe people deserve a second chance again if they're willing and they're deserving. But I think that is kind of a personal choice that you would have to make if somebody from my past life came up to me and wanted to rekindle things. I don't know. I think I would have to I would have to gauge it. I would have to see where they're at, right? To see if they've made a change. Because if they haven't, grown and changed from the last time that I saw them, then I would not want to continue that. But if I could tell that there was some I can't talk today, genuine, change and growth in them, you know, I would potentially be open for it. But, I feel for me personally, I want to protect the growth that I've made. And I don't want to take steps backwards. I'm trying to, take steps forward. And, sometimes people re-entering your life, can take you back. And I wouldn't want that for myself or for you or for anyone that's trying to, succeed and better their life.
True. I kind of use like progressive overload, like
Mm-hmm.
from the kind of the gym mentality where,
Mm-hmm.
okay, when you do meet someone new or you rekindle an old friendship
Mm-hmm.
and you guys just uh, like old friendships and just when you haven't seen them in a couple years, like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much growth after that's 2 years. Who knows what they've been up to?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they've changed the way you do too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm always trying to kind of gauge kind of their virtues. Like
Mm-hmm.
if they have like discipline and vulnerability are kind of the things that check my box. Like if you
Mm-hmm.
have that, if you're the type of person to just foster forgiveness and
Mm-hmm.
authenticity and the kind of these, it sounds like really general, but like you can
Mm-hmm.
really tell if a person says and does what they'll say,
Mm-hmm.
because certainly there are people that say, oh, I'll be there for you, but they don't pick up their phone half the time, or when you do call them, they don't call back. It's like, are
Mm-hmm.
you there for me? Right. I
Yep.
certainly, but then again, you got to be understanding because there are like other things in their life because maybe you got to care for them too. And it's kind of this, and what I've realized too is from, I'm really curious onto how other frameworks work and kind of this very successful people and how their
Mm-hmm.
minds work. And I don't think majority of people don't know what they want. Like I definitely don't know what I want. So I
Mm-hmm.
can really gauge a friend and, oh, do I want that person in my life? Oh, with this habit uprooting, like, is that even good for me?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of relating this back all to faith,
Mm-hmm.
where there is a plan and you just got to
Mm-hmm.
be comfortable and you got to be accepting of what's there. And you got to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and to how this is going to influence the grand scheme of things, and to accept that you have very little kind of control of the grand scheme of things. But then on the day-to-day basis, you can make those decisions, and God does present opportunities that will align with the role to fulfill in this chaotic world. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? Like I
100%.
I
Yep.
kind of, that was all over the place.
No, that made sense to me.
Yeah. So in what ways did they say CYC for child youth
Yeah.
care?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of like
Child
the
and youth
short.
care. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a little short slang for
Yeah,
it.
but they actually say
Oh,
CYC.
oh yeah, they do. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
So in what ways do you approach CYC work differently because of your personal history?
Think for me, it would definitely be my empathy, right? I can really, you know, understand and relate to these kids. And, you know, it's interesting because I think empathy is, I believe in empathy, but I also think it's kind of bullshit because you can't truly understand what somebody else has gone through, right? When people say, well, try and walk in those person's shoes, you can't, right? But I think what you can do is try and be empathetic towards how that would feel and how, like what you would do in that situation and how that would make you feel. But I truly live that, right? It might not be exactly the same as every, child and youth that I will come into contact with, but, the general feelings of, feeling worthless and feeling alone and feeling misunderstood, I truly know what that was like. And so for me, I think, approaching that and being able to build relationships with youth and kids in that way. And also being very transparent, being very honest and open. These kids are very smart and they will see through you. And so they will tell if you're trying to put up a front and, just to try and make a connection with them. So I think, and, with honesty comes empathy. I think those two go hand in hand. So that's definitely how I've been approaching and how I will approach CYC work in the future.
Mm. Do kids often come to you for their problems?
Yes.
That's kind of the main job,
Yeah, it
right? Like
is. Yeah, I mean, we're not their parents, right? We want to help them maintain or, reintegrate with their family, but we also are, a friend to them, a companion, somebody that they can trust and come to when things, are, going wrong in their life. And even, at my job right now, I've maintained and built a lot of good relationships with the youth, and they've come to me and asked me for advice. And, I'm just honest with them, even if it's, not something they necessarily want to hear, if I'm going to say, no, I don't think you should do that. And, here's why, but that's not necessarily what they want to hear. But I want to give them, the honest truth. Right. And I think that's how you build relationships and how you build that trust is, the youth and the people that I talk to, that I work with, they're always going to know what I say is the truth. And I am 100% honest in that what I say, I mean what I say. And it
Yeah.
comes from a good place.
Yeah. You align your thoughts with your values, and kind of the actions that you take, it's rooted in trust and it's
Mhm.
rooted in truth. And when these kids come up to you, they don't have to go, oh, like, can I trust Liz?
Mhm.
Does Liz have the best intentions for me?
Mhm.
What you say, you'll do.
Mhm.
And they trust you, because
Mhm.
it's so difficult to develop the trust, and it's easily tarnished, right, with one lie. Because, like, this could be, like, if
Mhm.
you don't provide what you had said to these kids,
Mhm.
then they're gonna feel hurt. And because negativity is so much more powerful,
Mhm.
it doesn't matter if you've done 100 things right. If you lie to them once when you're
Mhm.
a kid, they can't really trust you
That
as
trust is
much anymore.
broken. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Even saying no to kids and youth, especially, because that is how that trust is maintained. If, they ask me for something and I say no, but then 20 minutes later I give in, they're going to remember that. They're going to know, oh, Liz doesn't actually mean what she says. She doesn't actually follow through, right? And it's as simple as saying no to them. No, you can't do this. No, this isn't okay, right? It's simple things like that really go a long way in how they view you in that relationship.
You ever have those friends where when you call them, you're just expecting they won't answer because, like, they're good friends. Like, when you
Mhm.
see them, like,
Yeah.
you guys get a good time, and like, that doesn't, them not answering the phone call is not a good testament to
Mhm.
how the friendship
Mhm.
works. But yeah, I have, like, some friends where I just call them, and yeah, I'm like, this person's not gonna be, like, available. But
Mhm.
when they do answer, it's like, whoa, like,
Cha-ching.
love
Yep.
bomb,
Love bomb.
Yeah, man, lots of my friends, they love bomb me. But it's just, when that consistency aspect, though, when you do show up and you do kind of, when there is that response of actual genuine curiosity and genuine wanting to help these kids, they, when they come up to you, they know what they're gonna get.
Mhm.
Versus, because their entire lives, for a lot of them, they have unstable parents.
Mhm.
Whether, am I gonna come home and then my mom's gonna be, passed out drunk on the
Mhm.
couch, or my dad's gonna beat me. It's just reality of it.
Yeah,
Or I'm gonna move
exactly.
to another house again, and I'm gonna feel rejected, and it's like this discombobulation of
Mhm.
just, like, all these different negative feelings. But then when you come to a youth worker, you need to be consistent.
Mhm.
Okay. And certainly you're gonna have those days where it's just gonna be tough,
Mhm.
right? And how do you maintain your consistency when you are dealing with so many stories of these kids and kind of being on top of your A game? How do you stay consistent?
I think for me, um, taking breaks for yourself, And what I mean by that is even if, you're having a hard day and there's, a lot going on and, you have a couple kids that are really struggling and you're trying to, individually help them in the way that they need, taking a step back for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes, and really kind of just refocusing and remembering, what you're doing, why you're there, and your purpose, and remembering that you are that one stable adult for these kids, right? They lack stability. They lack that, that trust. And I think, yeah, remembering that that's your job and that's your purpose is really important. Yeah.
You ever do TikTok dances with them?
They have yet to ask me to do that, actually.
Well,
They have
well,
asked me to do Just Dance, but they've
yeah,
yet to ask me to do that.
yeah.
They want me
And
to do that trend where you have like the candy bowl and you
yeah.
go, "Hi, my name is Liz," and then you trauma dump. You know that trend?
Yeah, I've
That's the
seen
trend they
that.
want me to do.
Hi, my name's Advin, and like my dad beats me or something.
Yeah,
Something like that,
exactly.
and then you
And
just
then
go
I
around.
brought the fuzzy peaches.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they want me to do.
Have you seen that trend where there was my money? Have you seen that
Yeah,
one?
that one.
Yeah, I just found out about that from my friend Bryce,
Yeah,
and just it's the funniest
it is funny.
thing. Yeah,
I've seen some other staff that I work with doing it with the kids, the younger kids mostly,
I think
but
the kids would just erupt in like tears. Like
it's kind of funny. They don't cry, but they're like, "What the heck?"
hurt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm sure they're not that sensitive, right?
I think it depends on the
It
kid.
depends on the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, oh, this kid could take it.
Yeah,
And
this
that
one
kid,
maybe not so much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. Can you share a moment where your unique background helped you connect with a child or youth in a way others might not have been able to?
I think there isn't one specific moment yet, but in retrospect, I think all the moments that I've had specifically with the youth that I work with now, um, most of them do know my background briefly. And I think for them, that opens like a sense of comfortableness with me, right? They don't feel the need to, be ashamed that, oh, my home life is kind of rough, or, oh, I'm doing this, or, I think that my experience really welcomes the youth to go, it's okay to, be this way and be this person. And I don't need to be ashamed of what's going on because, I'm quite open with the youth and with people in general about, my history and where I'm from and what I've been through. And I think that lays a foundation, of vulnerability and trust with people that, these kids feel comfortable to come up to me and, talk to me about things that they wouldn't tell their mom or, even their best friend. Um, I have a lot of LGBTQ youth at my job, and one of them said to me, they were like, "Liz, we're just so happy that you're so, accepting of our community, that you're an ally." And, and that meant a lot to me because, I want these kids to feel like they can be themselves when they, come to our club or when they're around me. And, you know, I want that for them. I want them to know that there are people in their life that, are going to be there for them and care for them, and that they can be themselves and will accept them for who they are.
Yeah, I think lots of kids need that love. It's the most powerful force
Exactly.
in the world. And how do you remind these kids of resiliency, that they can, even if they don't find a home, and even you had mentioned that a lot of these kids don't end up finding a stable home. How do you instill in them and kind of, I'm sure you're not there every day. Like you can't be there for every single kid, but when you are having these conversations, whether it be directly or indirectly, how do you instill in them that there is faith in this chaotic world?
I remember when I was, their age and what that felt like. And for me, it was honestly the little things, the small successes, when one of my kids gets a really good grade on, a test, we celebrate, and I remind them that they are capable of doing things that they put their mind to, right? A lot of these kids are very creative and, artistic and very smart. And I try and play at their strengths, and encourage them to practice their weaknesses, right? Because we all have flaws. We all, have things we need to work on. And I try and remind them that it's not necessarily a bad thing that, we have those weaknesses. And I just, I remind them that they are capable and that they are loved and that they are cared for and that they are able to do those things, right? And I tell them, I said, I did that. You are capable and it is possible. And, that we'll be here for you in whatever kind of support that you need, with circumstance. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really isolating to feel like this is all unique to you. Or like, oh, I'm like in society, we're told we're special, that we're gonna be unique and we're all gonna achieve all our dreams and ambitions. And then what we experience is unique to us. And that could also be kind of harmful,
Crippling for sure.
Because, oh, like, what about the suffering that I'm feeling? What about all these things? Like, is that unique to me? And yeah, it's good to have that reminder that sure, it is unique. You are unique, but you're also not alone. Like,
exactly.
This is what's happened to you isn't special. Like, this has happened to a person like you already. And it's very helpful to have an individual like you in their lives to tell them, hey, I went through the same situation, maybe not exactly the same situation, but I am able to speak to you now from a better place. And yeah, I was once 12, 13, 14, feeling like I wasn't enough, feeling like the world is out to get me, and going through all these kind of the roller coaster of emotions of my high highs and my low lows, and thinking that, oh, this family's finally going to accept me, or, oh, this thing that I'm good at, it's finally going to turn out right. But you realize, and you're going to get slapped in the face like so many times, but you're going to fall. But it's how you react to those things and how you process them, and certainly the guardians in your entire life and the people that you meet. It's not all for nothing. It's all, I think we are put on this earth for a purpose, and sure, there's a lot of suffering, but it's just when you add meaning to it and when you grow from it and when you try to spread peace, love, and positivity now, even though you go through it, it's just so much power to it. Now, for the people, kids that are listening, what would you say that to them right now? Maybe could be about anything. Just
don't give up.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Keep going. I remember, being at that age and just, wanting to give up, wanting to give in, not wanting to be here anymore. And, there that you are capable. You are capable, and there is purpose in the suffering. And even though it may seem really dark and that you can't get through this, that you can, because you're strong and you're capable. And, I wish that, at a point in my life that I truly believe that. And I want that for my kids and for the kids that I'm going to be working with, that they are capable and they can get through this. And just to not give up hope and, trust that God has a plan, and that, if you walk through those doors and you keep going, that in the end, it'll work out.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the long-term podcast. It's been
a real experience.
Yeah, it's been good.
Awesome.
I learned so much about how the system works, and kind of your story is very inspiring. I've been repeating that, but there's no other way that I can describe it. It's just a lot of gratitude I sense around you, and your atmosphere is just, it's very, very grounding. I think you send a good message, and I think you're going to help a lot of kids in your lifetime, and many are going to talk about the Jollies more now that you're kind of integrated into, and it's just, I'm so happy with how far you have come and
Thank you,
continue to
Advin.
grow.
That means a lot. Thank you for
Yeah.
letting me speak my truth.
Yeah. But yeah, as always, to everyone listening and watching, there is a place for you in this chaotic world. Never lose hope, strengthen your faith, and keep it long term. Peace.